Hi everybody, today I wanted to do a little video here in my studio just talking about how to go about planning a landscape photography shoot. If you've been following the series so far, you'll know that I'm not an experienced landscape photographer. I've had some successes and some failures, but one of the things that I like to do is plan my shoots before I go out to location. Now I know that not everybody does this. Some landscape photographers tend to just go out, go to a rough location they know already, and they'll walk around and try and find a shot. Because I'm not so experienced, I personally like to plan my shoot in advance, know roughly where I'm heading to, know what viewpoints and vistas I'm going to be looking for, and sometimes even know the exact shot I want to take. I have no problem at all with copying somebody else's shot. It's all learning, it's all experience, and then hopefully I can adapt that in future to find my own original work. So today we're going to talk about how I go about doing that. Now in my last couple of videos you will have seen that I went to Photopills in Wales to shoot a waterfall. And today I'm going to go through what I did in order to plan that shoot. Now my go-to starting point at the moment is this book, which is Photographing North Wales by Simon Kitchen, and this book is published by Photoview, and they have books for different locations around the country, such as the Lake District in Scotland. They're all done by different authors who know the area. They all follow the same format, and I think this is a really great resource. Now when I was flicking through this book, I was looking for where to shoot, and I came across this photo, which you can see is probably very similar to the photo I took last week, and I wanted to go and take essentially this photo. So forward a page or two, this book says where it's taken. It has information on where to park, including the postcode, which is usually enough for most car parks. The postcode is usually enough, but it actually has latitude, longitude as well, which you can put into Google Maps or your sat-nav and use that to find the exact location of the car park, because some of these places are really tucked away down tiny country lanes. In fact, when I went here, you'd have seen it in the video, it's down some very, very narrow tracks, to the point where I didn't even know if there were roads. I thought I was driving down footpaths, but this thing let me know there's a car park at the end of it, so it's suitable for cars. Now this couple of pages is all about Photopills, and it offers 3 different viewpoints. Now they're obviously not the only viewpoints to shoot from, but these are 3 recommendations to get you started. The first one is a close-up of the waterfall itself. It explains how to get down to the waterfall, it explains the different locations, and it also explains where the light's going to come from at different times of day and the best times of the year to shoot. Viewpoint 2 is from the top of the falls, and viewpoint 3 was where we went to in the first video, up to the hill adjacent and the footpath, so you can shoot back with a long lens to zoom in on the waterfall, and that's the shot I took, and it's the shot that I showed you on the following page. So this book alone shows you how to get to a location, roughly the best times to go, and where the best viewpoints are. But what it doesn't tell you are sunrises, sunsets, and sometimes the topography of the land. Some of these places are quite low down, quite difficult to get to, and although the information in this book is helpful, it's not necessarily all you need. So I'm going to go through a couple of other things that you should probably check before you go out to make sure that you're going at the best time and you're going to get the best shot. So the first thing I check, and different people will do this in a different order, is the topography of the land around. Now if you're shooting particularly in mountain areas, you're probably going to want to know something about the topology and how high that is, and there are different ways to do this. You can use ordnance survey maps if you can read contour lines, and I understand contour lines, but I'm not quite at the level yet where I can intuitively read them, the way some people read music. They read a sheet of music and they can just hear the sound. Other people can read contour maps and they can just see the landscape, and I'm getting there, but I really do have to work it out. So I use an app called the Photographers Ephemeris 3D. Now this is the app. I'll put this on screen for you now, and it allows you to select any location, pretty much I think anywhere in the world. I'm not sure, it certainly covers the UK and the US, but I think it's got pretty much the whole world in, and it essentially gives you a 3D view of the world. Now it doesn't include high resolution images like Google Maps for instance, but it gives you a picture of the land. Now a couple of weeks ago I went to Snowdon, to Llanberis, to shoot that very famous tree that everybody shoots, and I was trying to frame a shot with the mountains in the background at a very, very, very specific time. I wanted to have the moon rising or setting in between the mountains, and I used this app so I could figure out what direction I needed to point in and when the moon was going to set in that exact spot. And that took quite a bit of working out. I took some advice online, and different people said, yeah, you can use maps, you can use apps like Photopills, which I also use, by the way. You can do different ways to do it, but this actually gave me a visual representation that I could understand of how to get the shot I wanted to get. So, here's what you do. You, first of all, search for a location. And we'll search for Photopills in this case, and it gives you a pin. And I'll show this very, very quickly because there are tutorials online on how to use this app. And when you go into enhanced mode and zoom in to the pin, you essentially have that first person view of what it's like to be standing there. Then you can spin around and you can find the composition that you want. Now, as I say earlier, this isn't going to give you a picture of the waterfall, but it is going to show you where the rivers are, but it will give you the lay of the land. Now, the other thing it does is it'll show you the sunrise and sunset. So you will have, across the sky, an orange line or a blue line, and you'll see the sun and moon move across. And the other very, very useful thing is you can actually see how the sun is going to strike the landscape. So if like me, you like those early morning or evening shots, sunrise and sunset, you can see how the light is going to dapple across the tops of the mountains, you can see what direction it's going to come from, and you can see how small a time window you're going to have to get the shot that you're picturing in your mind. And I find this to be just a totally invaluable resource. Now, I know not everybody relies on these things, and if that's not your style, if you just like to go out and shoot, then great. This video obviously isn't aimed at you. But if, like me, you're lacking a little bit of confidence and you can't go out too often because maybe of other commitments, it just allows you to fully maximise the amount of time that you have. Now, the other great variable, particularly in the UK, is weather. You don't always necessarily want bright blue skies, you don't necessarily want rain or thunderstorms, as we saw, but if you can get a nice dramatic sky, if you can see where the cloud's going to be, and ideally if you're shooting at sunrise or sunset, you kind of want some cloud above you, but not on the horizon where the sun or the moon is going to rise or set, because that way the sunlight will come through. It's not going to be blocked, but it is going to light up the cloud that's perhaps over you and over the thing you're taking the picture of. That's my favourite time to shoot, and I know Thomas Heaton always says after rain as well. It just cleans the atmosphere up and you can get some great reflections of light through the atmosphere and through wet rocks or rivers or whatever. Now, I use a couple of apps to check the weather. The first one is just the built-in iPhone weather app. It'll give you a vague description of what the weather's going to be on a certain day, and sometimes that's enough. If it says it's going to be sunny all week, then it's probably going to be sunny all week, you don't need to worry. But I use another app as well called Dark Sky, which I've had for a few years, and it certainly used to describe itself as being hyper-local. And what that means is it'll give you a weather forecast for a very, very specific location, which is probably what we want. So using Dark Sky, we pop in our location, and it'll give you some different representations of the weather. The first one it's going to give you is a sort of timeline of temperature and cloud cover. We can also check the precipitation percentage, and it'll tell you the likelihood of rain. Again, it'll give you that cloud cover. And again, sometimes that's more than enough information. Now, when it's raining, in the little bar chart area here towards the centre, it will tell you roughly when it's going to stop raining. And actually, at times I found this to be super accurate. Other times not, but it's probably got a 50% hit rate down to the minute of when the precipitation is going to stop. And that's handy if you are out on location, if it's raining and you're wondering whether to hang around or whether to call it a day. Little caveat, you do need to have data access in your phone to use this, and what I mean by that is you need to have a 4G or Wi-Fi signal. So, as we saw in the car park at Photopills last week, I couldn't use this app to tell me when it was going to stop raining, unfortunately. So sometimes it's also best to check this in advance as well. Now, one more thing I use to check the weather is a website called Meteoradar, I find this to be slightly more accurate than the actual Met Office website, but what this does is gives you a map of the UK, and again it just shows you visually the cloud cover over time. It's pretty accurate, and you've got to be able to read it. You need to understand the difference between the height of clouds, or the depth of cloud, i.e. is it low cloud that's going to obscure everything? Is it going to be very, very high and misty cloud, which might work for you? So you've got to take a bit of time to essentially translate what this is trying to tell you, but tie this in also with the other weather information you have, tie this in also with where you know you're going to be, and you can get quite an accurate representation of what the weather's going to do on a particular day. So now we know where we're going to shoot from, what we're going to shoot, and hopefully we're going to do that at the right times on the right day. That's most of the planning done for any landscape photography shoot, but just some other things to think about. And I say again, I'm not an expert, I'm telling you this from my own very, very limited experience. Number one, take the right equipment. Don't take too much, but don't take too little as well. So just think in advance, what lenses are you likely to use? Are you going to need any filters? Have you got a sturdy tripod? Now if you're already a photographer, all this goes without saying, you're probably not going to take the wrong gear, but sometimes it's just worth having a checklist. On my last couple of shoots I've actually forgotten my remote shutter release and haven't been able to get those long exposures because I'm limited to 30 seconds. So maybe you plan a checklist in advance, and when you're packing your bag, tick items off. And the other thing to think about, of course, is clothing. If it's windy, if it's wet, if you're climbing a mountain where weather conditions are always changeable no matter what the weather forecast says it's going to do, you just need to consider what you're going to wear, what's going to be suitable, what's going to keep you safe as well. So if you're out doing landscape photography, I think the most important thing are proper walking boots. I've got a couple of pairs, but don't try to climb a mountain in Converse All-Stars or your high heels. It ain't gonna work. And maybe just also take a couple of different options as well. If it looks like it's going to be warm and sunny but might rain, just have a backup plan in your car, a raincoat, a fleece. Now if it's going to be cold or windy, it's all about layers. It's not necessarily about the thickness of your coat, it's how many layers you have on. So when I went to Iceland, it was -15, -20, and we went up to a glacier. I think I had 4 different top layers on, which was an underlayer. I think I had my fleece, I had like a thermo bubble jacket, and also my top windproof layer as well, which is the green coat I've worn in some of my videos. And I found it was perfectly warm throughout the whole trip. Not once did I ever feel cold on the top. And it was the same on the legs as well. Fleece-lined leggings, I guess they were, and a rain cover on top of that. So just bear that in mind. Again, maybe make a checklist of these things. In fact, I suggest making a checklist of everything you might ever want to take, and that way it's just a reminder, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, have you thought about the next thing, and you can tick them off or cross them if you don't need to. And the final thing is simple safety gear. A couple of things I always take with me when I'm out shooting landscapes. Number one is a compass. I do know how to read a compass, I know how to approximately work out the sun, what direction the sun is in at any given time of day, at any given time of year, so I know roughly what direction I need to head in on the compass. But of course the compass is massively more useful if you have a paper map. Now I don't always take paper maps, it depends where I'm going, but I do have a couple for when I know I'm going to go somewhere quite remote and I'm just going to walk. I always have that in my bag. To be honest, I tend to use maps on my phone again, but I can't necessarily rely on my phone's battery always being charged or having data if it's needed. So a paper map is a valuable resource if the worst happens. Other things include something like a head torch, particularly if you're going out to shoot at sunset and sunrise, because you're either going to be walking to your location in the dark or walking back from it in the dark. So I highly recommend a head torch. I think mine cost around £50. It's quite a powerful one. You can get cheaper ones as well, but this is safety gear. It's the kind of thing you buy once, you might have it for years and years and years, and you never know, it just might save your life one day. And that's about it really. The shoot's planned now. You know where you're going, when you're going there, what safety gear to take, what photography gear to take, and what to wear. You're ready to get out and shoot. And I know this video's been a little bit dry. I much prefer making the videos where I go out and shoot something, but I can't do that unless I do these things before I go. Now this is just how I do it. I'm sure everybody has their own little ritual, but if you're new to landscape photography like me, these are the kind of things that I've been learning over the past few weeks, which have made my experiences of being out there a little bit safer, a little bit more productive as well. So if you found this video useful, then please hit that like button. I always have an explanation on that. If you hit like, then YouTube moves me slightly up the search rankings, and that's a big deal. That's what keeps these videos being made, essentially. And also don't forget to subscribe. This is a series I'm doing, Learn Landscape Photography, with a complete buffoon like me. I'm making the mistakes as I go. I don't profess to be a very good landscape photographer, but I'm getting better and I'm learning, and this series of videos hopefully is for the viewers to learn along with me and not have to make some of the mistakes I'm making. Plus, it's just fun. So there we are. I don't know what's planned for next week. I don't know what we've got coming up, but keep an eye on the subscriptions, and I'll see you then. So this book alone shows you how to get to a location, what to expect when you get with the time of day that you want to shoot it. That makes no sense.